Let my nanny go. The guilty one is the Duchess. The prince's daughter bursts into the courtroom. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The marble courtroom of Versailles shimmered beneath chandeliers that hung like frozen constellations. The air itself seemed perfumed with judgment. Murmurs rippled along the gallery of nobles, eager for entertainment disguised as righteousness. The accused stood in silence, Claire Fournier, governess to the young daughter of Prince Henri de Montclair. Her pale hands were folded, her eyes lowered, her voice locked behind pride and terror. The judge's words rolled through the chamber with measured indifference. Claire Fournier, servant of His Highness's household, you stand accused of the theft of Her Grace the Duchess de Villeneuve's emerald necklace. How do you plead? 1,000 glances darted toward her, but Claire spoke only one word. Innocent. The Duchess, seated in a cascade of silks the color of envy, smiled faintly as if pitying the accused. Innocent, she murmured to the woman beside her. She must believe the court is blind. Claire heard it. Her throat burned, but she remained still. She had learned, in years of service, that silence was safer than truth. Prince Henri sat a few seats from the king's dais, his posture rigid, his expression unreadable. He had known Claire since the birth of his daughter Elise. To see her standing before the court like a criminal stirred something ungovernable within him, something he dared not show before the crown. The prosecutor, powdered and pompous, stepped forward. The necklace, valued at 12,000 livres, was last seen upon the Duchess's neck at the ball of Saint-Honoré. The following morning it was gone. A search of the servants' quarters led to the discovery of an empty box beneath the accused's bedding. No other servant had access to that wing. I call upon Her Grace, the Duchess Marguerite de Villeneuve, to confirm her accusation. All heads turned toward the Duchess. She rose with the grace of one long accustomed to being obeyed. I confirm, she said smoothly. The necklace was a wedding gift from my husband, the Duc de Villeneuve. I cherished it. When it vanished, I requested a discreet inquiry. Alas, the evidence pointed to my former companion, now the governess of the Montclair child. I take no pleasure in her disgrace, but justice must not bow to sentiment. A murmur of approval rippled through the nobles. Claire lifted her chin for the first time. Your Grace, she said softly, I served you once. You know I am not capable of theft. The Duchess's lashes lowered. People change, Claire. Ambition is a subtle poison. Before the judge could speak again, a sudden noise broke through the solemnity. The heavy doors at the back of the hall burst open, slamming against the walls. Gasps echoed. A small figure ran down the aisle, skirts gathered in trembling fists. Papa, cried a clear young voice. Stop this! You must stop this now! It was Elise, the prince's daughter. Her cheeks were flushed, her golden curls disheveled. 2 guards rushed to intercept her, but she slipped past them with the agility of desperation. She reached the center of the hall and faced the throne. Let my nanny go, she shouted, her small voice trembling but fierce. The guilty one is the Duchess. For an instant the world seemed to freeze. Nobles stared, mouths half open. Even the king's hand, raised to his lips, stopped mid-motion. Elise! Prince Henri rose to his feet. What are you doing here? The child turned toward him, tears shining in her eyes. She didn't steal it, Papa. Claire never steals. I know she didn't. The judge cleared his throat, visibly shaken. Your Highness, remove the child. This is most improper. But the king, amused and intrigued, gestured lazily. Let her speak. Innocence is rare in these halls. Elise swallowed hard. Her little hands trembled as she reached for something hidden in the folds of her gown. She stepped forward and opened her palm. There, glinting in her small hand, lay a single green gemstone. The crowd erupted. A wave of voices rose like a storm breaking over marble. The emerald! The missing jewel! How did she come by it? God in heaven, the child! The Duchess's face drained of color. This is madness, she hissed. That child must be mistaken. Elise looked directly at her. I found it under your chair, madam, 3 days ago. You dropped it, didn't you? The courtroom trembled with collective disbelief. Prince Henri reached his daughter and knelt beside her, his voice low. Elise, think carefully. Are you certain? The girl nodded, her lip quivering, but her gaze steady. Yes, Papa. I wanted to tell you before, but the Duchess told me not to speak of it. She said it was not a matter for children. All eyes turned to Marguerite. Her smile flickered, then returned, brittle as porcelain. Your Majesty, children imagine things. Perhaps she picked up a trinket in the garden. Any jeweler could tell you that is not my emerald. The king motioned for the gemstone. His steward carried it to the dais. The jewel caught the candlelight and scattered it in brilliant sparks across the room. The judge examined it next, comparing it to the record of the missing necklace. His voice trembled slightly as he said, "The cut and size match the inventory precisely." Claire stood motionless. She dared not believe what she was seeing. The weight pressing on her chest lifted slightly, but disbelief held her silent. The Duchess straightened. "Your Majesty, surely you see what is happening here. A child has been manipulated by her governess. The poor girl must have been instructed to stage this spectacle." Henri's eyes darkened. "My daughter is not capable of deceit, madam." "Every child is capable when affection is used as bait," the Duchess replied coldly. The king looked from one to another, his amusement fading. "Enough. The matter grows tangled. We shall suspend judgment until further inquiry. The court is adjourned." But the tension did not break. It thickened. The Duchess swept from the chamber like a storm, her husband trailing behind, bewildered. Nobles whispered, fanning themselves nervously. Henri lifted Elise in his arms. "My little one, what you've done, do you understand what it means?" "She was going to be punished," the child murmured against his shoulder. "I couldn't let them hurt her." He turned to Claire, still standing between two guards. "You will be taken back to your quarters until the inquiry is complete," the judge announced. Claire met the prince's gaze. For the first time in weeks, she saw compassion there, not judgment. "Thank you, Your Highness," she whispered. He shook his head. "Thank my daughter. She has done what none of us dared." The guards led Claire away, though not with the same harshness as before. As the great doors closed behind her, the hall buzzed with nervous conversation. "Did you see the Duchess's face?" whispered one lady. "Like marble cracking." "She will not forget this humiliation," murmured another. Outside the courtroom, the corridor smelled of wax and secrets. Claire's heart pounded as she walked beside the guards. Freedom felt suddenly possible, yet fragile as a candle flame. In the antechamber, Prince Henri caught up with her. "Wait," he said quietly to the guards. They obeyed. He looked at her for a long moment. "Tell me the truth, Claire. Do you know why the Duchess would accuse you?" Claire hesitated. "Because I know something she fears." "What is it?" She looked away. "Something from before I entered your service. I had hoped never to speak of it again." His tone softened. "If it can save you, you must. It can destroy others," she said simply. He studied her face, seeing the exhaustion behind her composure. "Then rest for tonight. Tomorrow we will speak again. I give you my word. You will be treated with respect until this is resolved." Her eyes filled with tears she did not let fall. "You are kind, my lord." He hesitated, as if he wished to say more, but Elise tugged at his sleeve. "Papa, will they let her come home?" "Not yet, my love," he said gently. "But soon, perhaps." The child looked at Claire with fierce determination. "I will pray every night until you do." Claire smiled faintly. "Then I am safe indeed." They parted in the corridor, the prince and his daughter ascending the golden staircase, the governess descending toward the cold cellars below. That night Versailles did not sleep. Rumors darted from salon to salon, twisting truth into spectacle. Some said the Duchess had framed the governess to conceal her own theft. Others claimed the child was bewitched. But among the servants whispers of sympathy spread, whispers that carried Claire's name with a strange reverence. In her narrow cell, Claire sat upon the straw mattress and clasped her hands. She tried to pray, but found no words. The face of the Duchess rose before her, pale and furious. If Marguerite had indeed dropped the emerald, what had driven her to such carelessness? Fear, guilt, or something even deeper? The key turned in the lock. Claire rose quickly. It was not the guard she expected, but a younger one, his expression uneasy. He stepped inside, glancing over his shoulder. "Madame," he whispered, "I am sent to give you this." He placed a folded slip of parchment in her hand. His fingers trembled. "Who sent you?" she asked. He shook his head. Do not ask. Read it when you are alone. He left as silently as he had come. Claire unfolded the note under the dim light of the lantern. The handwriting was elegant, almost familiar. 4 short lines stared back at her. If you wish to live, deny knowing the Duchess. Her heart lurched. The shadows of the cell seemed to close around her. Someone within the palace wanted her silence. Someone who feared what she might reveal. She sank to her knees, the note trembling in her hand. Above her, distant bells marked the midnight hour, echoing through marble corridors and gilded ceilings. As Claire's candle burned low, she wondered whose hand had written the warning, and how long she had before the truth demanded its price. The dawn over Versailles was grey, a colourless light that carried the smell of candle smoke and unease. News of the Emerald's appearance had already crossed the palace corridors, like fire leaping from wick to wick. Servants whispered at the doors of chambers, courtiers muttered in the galleries. Every conversation ended the same way. No one could understand how a child had dared accuse a duchess. Claire had not slept. The message burned in her thoughts. Deny knowing the Duchess. But how could she deny what all of Versailles already knew? Once, years ago, she had been Marguerite's companion. She had written letters for her, read poetry aloud to her, dressed her hair when she was still only the new wife of the Duc de Villeneuve. That memory now felt like a crime. The guard who brought her breakfast refused to meet her eyes. "The prince has asked to speak with you after the morning meal," he muttered. "Will I be freed? That is not for me to say." When he left, she tore the bread in half, but could not swallow. The note lay hidden in her sleeve. Someone inside the palace wanted her frightened and silent. Someone who believed she knew something worth killing for. By the time the guard returned, Claire's resolve had hardened. If she was to be silenced, she would first understand why. He led her through the lower passages of the palace, where daylight touched only in thin lines through iron grates. They climbed a narrow staircase and entered a small salon near the chapel. Prince Henri was already there, standing by the window, his profile caught in pale light. "Claire," he said softly, turning toward her, "you look exhausted." "I am well enough, Your Highness." He waved away formality. "After yesterday, no one in this palace is well. Sit, please." She obeyed, keeping her hands still in her lap. "The court is in confusion," he continued. "The king has ordered that the jewel be examined by experts. Until then, the inquiry remains open. My daughter insists she spoke the truth." "She did, my lord." "I know." He sighed, pressing a hand to his temple. "But truth in Versailles is often treated as mischief. The Duchess is already spreading her version of events. She says you bewitched my daughter with tales and made her believe in impossible things." Claire gave a bitter smile. "Then I am a sorceress as well as a thief." He studied her face. "What truly happened between you and the Duchess? I can protect you only if I understand." She hesitated. "I once served her years ago. When she first arrived at court, she was young and uncertain. I read letters for her, copied notes. One night she dismissed me without explanation. I never understood why. But she feared something then, something in a letter she had written." Henri's brow furrowed. "A letter?" "I don't know its content, only that she sealed it with the Villeneuve crest and burned another before my eyes. She said, 'One must erase the past to survive at court.' Then she told me to leave her household forever." The prince's gaze sharpened. "Do you think the letter concerns the emerald?" "I think it concerns her guilt," Claire said. Henri stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You must be cautious. The Duchess is powerful and merciless. Even the king hesitates to cross her. I will speak with the judge today. You must stay silent until I know who wrote that note you received." Claire's breath caught. "You know of it?" "I do now," he said, frowning. "I had suspected someone might threaten you. Tell me exactly what it said." She repeated the words. His expression grew grave. "Then you are in danger. Do not answer any questions from others. If anyone speaks of the Duchess, you know nothing, until I tell you otherwise." She nodded. "And Elise? Is she safe?" He smiled faintly. "The child is in the gardens with her tutor. She believes you will come home soon. I do not wish to disappoint her." A knock at the door interrupted them. The steward entered, bowing. "Your Highness, Her Grace requests an audience." Henri's eyes darkened. "Tell her I am occupied." "She insists, my lord. She says it concerns the reputation of your household." After a pause, Henri said quietly, "Let her in." Claire rose instinctively, her pulse quickening. The Duchess swept into the room like a breeze of perfume and silk. Her beauty remained impeccable, though her composure had the brittle shine of glass about to crack. "Your Highness," she said sweetly, "how kind of you to grant me a moment." Her gaze slid to Claire, and the sweetness vanished. "I see the accused is still in comfort. One would think prison food agrees with her." Claire lowered her eyes but said nothing. Henri spoke coldly. "You did not come here to insult my servants." "Servant?" she said softly. "Ah, yes, the noble heart of a prince, ever charitable to the lowly. But charity, dear Henri, can destroy a man's standing." He folded his arms. "Say what you came to say, Duchess." She smiled. "Only that this affair must end quietly. The child is mistaken, and your loyalty to her governess will soon be seen as folly. Do you wish the court to whisper that the prince is ruled by sentiment, or by the woman who tends his daughter's bed?" Henri's voice hardened. "Enough." Marguerite's tone sharpened in reply. "If you continue this, you will drag your family into ruin. I can protect you or destroy you. Decide which you prefer." Claire flinched. "Your Grace." The Duchess turned on her like a blade. "You will address me only when spoken to. Have you not caused enough disgrace?" Henri stepped between them. "You overstep yourself, Marguerite." Her eyes flashed, but she bowed slightly. "Then I have done my duty. I came to warn you both. This matter will end badly for anyone who touches it. Remember that." When she left, the room seemed colder. Henri turned toward Claire. "You see what we face. She will not yield easily. Then what will you do?" He looked out the window toward the gilded gardens. "I will find the truth, and I will protect you, even if it means defying her." Later that morning, Claire was escorted back to her quarters rather than the cell. It was a small mercy, perhaps granted by the prince himself. Yet she knew the Duchess would not forget that encounter. She felt it in the chill that followed her through the corridor, as if the very walls carried Marguerite's resentment. By midday, the palace trembled with rumor. Some said the Duchess had been seen leaving the king's apartments in tears. Others claimed she had demanded the prince's dismissal from court. In the servants' wing, 2 maids whispered as Claire passed. "They say the Duchess paid the guards to plant the empty jewel box under her bed." "Nonsense," said the other. "No one would dare." "Then why did the prince defend her?" "Because she's beautiful," the second girl whispered, "and dangerous." Claire paused outside her chamber door, her thoughts reeling. Inside, a faint rustle made her start. She pushed open the door quickly. A young footman stood by the window, holding something in his hand. When he saw her, he paled and dropped it. "What are you doing here?" Claire demanded. I was sent to bring you this," he stammered. "It fell from His Highness's carriage this morning." He fled before she could question him further. On the floor lay a folded scrap of parchment. She lifted it. Inside was a single line written in a hurried, unfamiliar hand. "Do not trust anyone in the court, not even those who defend you." Her heart pounded. The warning deepened the mystery. Was it another threat, or a plea for caution? That evening, as twilight dimmed the corridors, a knock sounded at her door. When she opened it, she found Elise standing there, her little cloak drawn tightly around her shoulders. "Elise, you should not be here." The girl slipped inside, eyes shining with mischief and worry. "Papa is at the council. I wanted to see you." "You mustn't. If they find you, I don't care." She threw her arms around Claire's waist. "They said you might go away again. Promise me you won't." Claire knelt and held her close. "I promise to come back as soon as it's safe." "Everyone whispers about the Duchess," Elise said. "They say she cries when the king is near, but laughs when no one watches." "Whispers are dangerous, my dear." The child looked up. "Papa says truth is never dangerous when one is honest." Claire smiled faintly. "Your father is a good man." The sound of footsteps in the corridor made them both freeze. Claire ushered the child behind the curtain just as the door opened. It was Henri. "Elise!" His tone was stern but not angry. "I should have known." The girl peered out sheepishly. "I wanted to see her, Papa." Henri sighed. "You must go back before the governess of the royal nursery discovers you missing." He escorted her to the door, then turned back to Claire. "They are questioning the servants again tomorrow. Be careful what you say. Someone is watching every word." "I have felt it," she said quietly. "There is someone in the shadows, someone who fears I remember too much." He looked at her intently. "Do you?" "Yes." Their eyes met, and silence grew between them, filled with all that could not yet be said. Then he spoke softly. "If you are right, this goes deeper than theft. Keep your courage, Claire. We will find who wrote those notes, and why." After he left, the corridors grew quiet, except for the distant clatter of hooves in the courtyard. Claire sat by the small window, trying to see the stars beyond the smoke of the lamps, the notes, the jewel, the Duchess's fury, all threads of a web tightening around her. She prayed for strength, unaware that in the gallery below 2 servants whispered to each other as they swept the floor. "She'll bring ruin to them all," one said. "Not if the Duchess stops her first," the other replied. "She's already sent word to Paris. If the governess speaks of that letter, everything falls apart." Claire, standing by her window, heard the faint echo of their voices carried upward through the vents. Her breath caught as the words reached her like a ghostly warning. If she speaks of that letter, everything falls apart. The next morning arrived wrapped in silver fog, muffling the sounds of the waking palace. In the corridors of Versailles, gossip drifted faster than the servants could sweep it away. Every noble had an opinion about the stolen emerald, the bold child, and the fallen governess. Yet beneath their painted calm, everyone felt the same thing: fear. Fear that someone's secret might be next to surface. Claire sat by the window of her small chamber, fingers locked around a cup of untouched tea. She had barely slept. The phrase she had overheard, "If she speaks of that letter," echoed endlessly in her mind. The letter she had seen years ago, sealed with the Villeneuve crest, burned and rewritten. It was the key to everything. She could almost see the flames licking the paper, the Duchess's trembling hands. A knock startled her. The door opened, and Prince Henri stepped in, wearing no wig or sash, only a dark coat. He looked tired but resolute. "I had to see you before the court meets again," he said quietly. "Has something happened?" "The king wants the inquiry closed quickly. The Duchess has turned the tide of opinion. She says the jewel found by Elise was planted to humiliate her." Claire's heart sank. "They believe her." "Some do, but not all. Judge Rousseau requested a private audience with me last night. He thinks the accusation is false. He believes the Duchess hides something and he means to uncover it. Then we have an ally." Henri nodded. "Perhaps, yet we must move carefully. Rousseau warned that several letters have vanished from the royal archives. He suspects someone is erasing traces of old correspondence." Claire's eyes widened. "Letters again?" "Yes. He mentioned a scandal from 8 years ago. A noble woman ruined by forged love letters that drove her to exile. He would not name her, but the timing matches the Duchess's rise to favor." A faint tremor passed through Claire's hands. "I was there when she wrote that letter. She claimed it was to defend her honor, but it was a lie. I copied it for her, at her command. The next morning she dismissed me without explanation. The woman she betrayed was never seen at court again." Henri stared at her. "You realize what you are saying? If you testify to that, you could destroy her. Or she could destroy me first," Claire replied. "She already tried." Henri began to pace. "Then we must find proof before she finds a way to silence you. Do you remember any names, any details that could help Rousseau?" Claire closed her eyes, forcing herself to remember. "There was a man who delivered the letter. A clerk named Bisset. I recall his limp. He served in the chancellery at the time." Henri seized on the name like a lifeline. "I'll send word to Rousseau. If this Bisset still lives, he might have kept a copy or a memory." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Claire, if the danger grows, promise me you'll hide yourself. I'll send someone I trust to warn you if it comes to that." She nodded, though she knew there was nowhere truly safe in Versailles. Later that afternoon the halls brimmed again with nobles pretending composure. The Duchess glided among them, her poise restored, her laughter bright and hollow. Yet even her closest companions noticed that her fan trembled in her hand. In the royal garden, Henri crossed paths with Judge Rousseau, a grey-haired man with sharp eyes and little patience for vanity. They spoke beneath a stone archway. "You are certain of this, Bisset?" Rousseau asked. "Claire Fournier remembers him clearly. If anyone can confirm her story, it's him." Rousseau nodded slowly. "Then we must act before word reaches the Duchess. She already suspects we dig too deep. My informant told me she met privately with the king's secretary this morning. When she smiles, it is to sharpen a blade. Can you bring Bisset here? I will try, Rousseau replied. But if she learns of our search, she'll move faster than justice ever can. As they spoke, a page hurried up with a sealed note. Henri broke the seal, scanning the lines. She requests another audience with the king tonight. She's not wasting time. Then neither must we, Rousseau said grimly. That evening, Claire remained confined to her chamber, pacing restlessly. Each knock on the door made her flinch. She half expected guards to come and take her away. But instead, as the bells marked 8, a familiar whisper came through the door. Madame Claire. She opened it to find the same young guard who had slipped her the first note. He looked paler than before. I should not be here, he murmured. But you must know. The Duchess met with the captain of the guards tonight. She gave him gold and an order. What order? He swallowed. To move you to the Bastille tomorrow. Claire's blood ran cold. But I'm under the prince's protection. She claims the king approved it. I don't know if it's true, but you must prepare. Something is happening. He pressed another small scrap of paper into her hand and hurried away. When she opened it, she saw 2 words written in a different hand than before. Trust Rousseau. She sat on the edge of her bed, trembling. Someone inside the palace wanted her gone, and someone else wanted her saved. Which side would win by morning? At the same hour, Henri attended the royal supper. The king was in good humor, entertained by the latest gossip, but the undercurrent of tension filled the room like smoke. The Duchess sat opposite Henri, her expression serene. When their eyes met, she smiled faintly, the smile of a cat that knows where the mouse is hiding. After supper, she approached him in the corridor, her perfume lingering like a warning. Your Highness, she said sweetly, I hope you have rested since our last unpleasant conversation. I rest little these days, Duchess. Ah, worry is unkind to you. If only you would leave these matters to wiser heads, you might sleep better. I prefer sleepless truth to peaceful lies. Her smile froze. Such bravery suits you. But tell me, what would you do if the king himself decided your governess's guilt was proven? Would you defy the crown for a servant? If that servant were innocent, yes. For a moment, something dangerous flashed behind her calm. Then she said softly, Be careful, Henri. There are ways to make innocence look very guilty indeed. He watched her glide away, her gown whispering against the marble floor, and knew she meant every word. When he returned to his chambers, Rousseau was waiting, breathless from haste. We found him, he said. Bisset. He's alive, living quietly in Rouen. He remembers the letter. He claims the Duchess paid him to deliver a forged confession implicating another lady in treason. Henri's pulse quickened. Will he testify? He will if summoned under protection. But we must act quickly. The Duchess has spies everywhere. I'll send a rider tonight, Henri said. He must reach Rouen before dawn. They parted, and Henri wrote a short note, sealing it with his own crest. Then he summoned the same young guard who had helped Claire. Ride for Rouen. Find a man named Bisset. Tell him the Prince of Montclair commands his presence at Versailles. Protect him at all costs. The guard bowed, hiding his fear, and left at once. The next morning broke with the ring of hoofbeats. Claire, expecting her removal to the Bastille, waited by the door with her small bundle of belongings. But instead of soldiers, Judge Rousseau himself appeared. You are not being taken away, he said firmly. You are coming with me to the chapel. It is safer there. Why? Because I believe the Duchess plans to have you silenced before the council meets again. He led her quickly through side corridors, avoiding the main hall where courtiers gathered for morning prayers. The chapel was dim and quiet, its tall windows washed in pale blue light. Sit here, Rousseau said. The prince will join us soon. He has news. Moments later, Henri entered, breathless, his cloak damp from the fog outside. Rousseau, has anyone followed you? None that I saw. Henri turned to Claire. Bisset is on his way. We will have the truth soon. Relief flooded her chest, but before she could speak, footsteps echoed beyond the chapel door. They froze. A woman's voice rang out, cold and familiar. Your Highness, are you hiding your witness in a chapel now? The Duchess stood at the entrance, flanked by 2 guards. Her smile was calm, but her eyes glittered. This is sacrilege, Rousseau protested. You cannot bring soldiers into the chapel. Oh, but I can, she replied. By order of the king, I have here a decree placing the accused under royal custody. You will surrender her at once. Henri stepped forward. I will not. The inquiry is not concluded. Nor will it be, she said softly, if the main witness disappears. Claire's breath caught. The guards advanced a step, awaiting command. Henri moved between them and her, his voice low but sharp. Touch her, and you defy me. The Duchess tilted her head. Do you dare such defiance before the crown? Before God himself, if I must. For a heartbeat, silence filled the chapel. Then Rousseau stepped forward. Your Grace, you speak of royal orders. Then let us see the seal. She hesitated. Henri saw the brief flicker of doubt in her eyes. The document she held bore no seal. Rousseau's voice grew firm. This is forgery, madam. The Duchess's expression darkened. You make a dangerous accusation. And you make a transparent threat. Her mask cracked for a moment, and her voice dropped to a whisper meant only for Claire. You should have stayed silent. She turned on her heel and swept out, her guards following. When the door closed, Henri exhaled. She's desperate now. Rousseau nodded grimly. Desperate and cornered, but she won't stop until that letter is found. Claire looked between them, her hands trembling. Then the letter still exists. It must, Rousseau said. And if she finds it before we do, she'll twist it to her advantage. Henri glanced toward the window where the fog was beginning to lift. Then we find it first. Outside, bells began to toll for the midday meal. Their sound rolled through the palace like distant thunder. None of them noticed the shadow slipping away from the chapel door, carrying word of what had just been said straight to the Duchess's ear. By nightfall, she would know that the prince sought the letter, and that the truth she had buried was rising once more. The bells of Versailles rang through the fog as dawn broke again. In the chapel where they had faced the Duchess, Claire, Prince Henri, and Judge Rousseau sat in uneasy silence. None had slept. The Duchess's forged decree proved she would risk anything now, and that meant they had little time. Henri paced near the altar. She knows we are close. If we cannot find that letter before she does, she'll destroy every witness. Rousseau's voice was steady. The Duchess's greatest weapon has always been fear. We must take it from her. I have a plan, but it demands courage from both of you. Say it, Henri urged. We will make her believe she is already lost, Rousseau said. If she thinks the letter is found, her panic will betray her. Claire frowned. You mean to deceive her? To expose her, Rousseau corrected. When Bisset arrives with his testimony, we shall let her hear whispers of the letter's return. She will seek it, and when she does, she will reveal where it truly lies. Henri stopped pacing. It's dangerous. Rousseau nodded. Truth often is. Claire rose. If this is the only way, I will do it. She will not frighten me anymore. Henri looked at her, admiration flickering behind his exhaustion. Then we move at once. Rousseau, tell no one but the guard who carries Bisset's escort. Claire must remain hidden until the Duchess makes her move. Rousseau inclined his head and left. When the chapel doors closed, Henri turned to Claire. You are braver than most men at court. She gave a faint smile. Fear and courage walk together, my lord. I simply cannot bear to live in fear any longer. His gaze softened. Claire, when this is over. But he stopped. A servant entered, bowing deeply. Your Highness, His Majesty requests your presence at the morning council. Henri's expression hardened. She's already moving her pieces. He turned back to Claire. Stay in the chapel until I return. No one else must see you. She nodded. Go. I will be safe here. When he left, the silence grew heavy again. The flickering candles cast shadows that seemed to whisper of danger. Claire clasped her hands and tried to pray, but her mind kept circling the same question. Where could the Duchess have hidden that letter? Meanwhile, in the council chamber, the air shimmered with tension. The king lounged in his chair, his amusement faint but watchful. Around him stood courtiers pretending calm. The Duchess was already there, dressed in soft silver that caught the light with every breath. Henri entered and bowed. Your Majesty. Ah, Montclair, said the king. We speak of your governess again. The court grows weary of this little drama. The Duchess believes it time to end it. Marguerite inclined her head. The servant has been a burden to His Majesty's peace for too long. Henri met her eyes. Your Majesty, before judgment, there is something the Duchess should explain. The letter she once forged, does she still claim it never existed? The murmur that followed was immediate. The king's smile faded. A forged letter? The Duchess's voice was sharp. Slander, Your Majesty. The prince spreads wild stories to defend his servant. Not stories, Henri said evenly. Evidence. A witness is on his way from Rouen, a clerk who once served in your own household. Marguerite's hand trembled only slightly as she adjusted her fan. Then let him come. The truth will vindicate me. Henri inclined his head. It will indeed. As he turned to leave, her voice cut through the air, low and venomous. You play a dangerous game, my lord. He looked back. So do you, Your Grace, and I suspect yours began long before mine. That evening word spread through the palace like perfume that the letter once thought destroyed had been found. No one knew who began the rumor, but it reached every corner before supper. The Duchess heard it from her maid, who swore she had seen a courier hand something sealed to Judge Rousseau. Marguerite dismissed the girl and stood before her mirror, pale as the pearls at her throat. It cannot be, she whispered. No one could have found it, but doubt gnawed at her composure. She summoned her most trusted servant, a thin man named Allard. Go to the judge's chambers, she ordered. Find out what he received today. If it's the letter, bring it to me. And if it is not, then make sure he cannot bring anything to court tomorrow. Allard bowed and vanished into the shadows. That same night, in the quiet of the chapel, Claire heard a soft creak near the back door. She rose quickly. Who's there? A familiar voice answered. It's me. Henri stepped into the candlelight. He looked weary, but his eyes burned with determination. The rumor has spread. Rousseau sent word. It's working. The Duchess has sent someone after him. He's ready, Claire exhaled. Then what must I do? Nothing more tonight, he said gently. You've done enough. Tomorrow, when Bisset arrives, the court will hear the truth. But until then, I must keep you hidden. I can't risk her reaching you. He hesitated, then took her hands. Claire, whatever happens, know that you've already changed more than you realize. You've shown this court that honesty still exists. She felt her throat tighten. If truth survives, it will be because of you, not me. Their eyes met in silence. Then he released her hands and turned toward the door. I must meet Rousseau. Rest if you can. But Claire could not rest. She paced the narrow aisle, listening to the echo of her own steps. At last exhaustion drove her to the pew. She dozed beneath the faint glow of the votive candles. Some time later, a faint sound woke her. A footstep, soft but deliberate. She sat up. Who is it? The door opened slowly, revealing the same guard who had brought her the first warning. His face was pale with fear. Madame, forgive me. They know where you are. You must leave at once. She rose, heart pounding. Who sent you? The prince, he said quickly. He bade me take you through the servants' corridor to the western wing. It's safer there. Claire hesitated. Where is the prince now? In the judge's quarters, waiting for Bisset. Please, we have no time. She followed him through the side door, down a spiral stair that led to the underpassages. The air was cold and damp. Their footsteps echoed softly. At the end of the corridor, the guard stopped. Wait here, he whispered. I'll make sure the way is clear. He disappeared around the corner. A moment later, another sound approached, footsteps heavier, slower. Claire froze. From the shadows emerged not the guard, but Allard, the Duchess's servant. Well, he said, smiling thinly, the bird saves us the trouble of the chase. She stepped back. Where is the guard who brought me? He shrugged. Gone. He should learn to choose his employers more wisely. Before she could cry out, a door burst open at the corridor's end. Henry appeared, followed by 2 soldiers. Allard, he shouted, step away from her. The servant cursed and fled into the darkness. The soldiers pursued, but Henri caught Claire's arm. Are you hurt? She shook her head. No. How did you know? I followed you, he said breathlessly. Something felt wrong. The guard who came for you was found unconscious near the stables. The Duchess sent an impostor. Claire's knees weakened. She means to end this tonight. Not if we end it first, Henri said. Rousseau just sent word. Bisset has arrived. He carries the original letter. Her eyes widened. The original? Yes, hidden all these years in a church ledger. The Duchess's handwriting, the false confession, all of it preserved. He guided her back up the stairs toward the chapel. At dawn we present it to the king, then her reign of lies ends. But as they stepped into the dim light of the nave, the chapel door swung open once more. A messenger stumbled inside, his cloak torn from riding. "Your Highness," he gasped, "Judge Rousseau's chambers, ransacked. The letter is gone." The messenger's words froze the air. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Henri gripped the man's arm. "Gone? How? When?" "Just after midnight, Your Highness. The guards found the chamber overturned, papers scattered. Judge Rousseau lives, but he was struck down from behind. He sent me to warn you before the Duchess could flee." Claire's breath caught. "She has the letter." Henri turned toward the chapel doors. "Then she believes she's won. Or she plans something worse," the messenger said. "Her carriage stands ready. She means to appear at the king's ball tonight." Henri's expression hardened. "Then so shall we." He sent the messenger for physicians and guards, then faced Claire. "This ends now. If she shows that letter at court, she'll twist it until the king sees you as the deceiver." Claire steadied herself. "Then we must reach him first." Henri shook his head. "Not in daylight. She would make a scene and claim your presence threatens her safety. We must wait until tonight, when masks hide faces, but not intentions." She frowned. "The masquerade? Yes. She will believe herself untouchable there. But truth wears no disguise. All day, Versailles hummed like a restless hive. Servants draped the halls in gold, tuning violins and setting tables for the king's ball. Outside, carriages arrived from every noble house, wheels clattering on cobblestones. Yet behind the glitter, anxiety pulsed like a fever. Everyone had heard of the inquiry. Everyone waited for its conclusion. In her chamber, the Duchess stood before her mirror, the emerald necklace gleaming once more at her throat. On the table lay a sealed letter, its edges worn but legible. Her lips curved faintly as she traced her name written in another's hand, proof, she believed, of her control. When her maid asked if she should summon the Duke, Marguerite laughed softly. "Let him drink with his friends. Tonight I dance with the king's favor again." But when she was alone, her composure faltered. The letter's wax seal bore no royal crest, only the faint imprint of her own signet. What if the forgery was recognized? What if Rousseau had seen it before it vanished? She poured herself a glass of wine and forced her hand not to tremble. Meanwhile, Henri prepared in his private quarters, fastening the simple black mask that would conceal his face among hundreds. He looked at Claire, who stood uncertain in a borrowed gown of pale ivory, her hair loosely gathered. "I cannot go in as a servant," she said quietly. "They will recognize me." "They won't," he replied. "Tonight you are only a guest from the provinces. No one will question a masked lady with a prince at her side. I don't belong there. You belong wherever truth must be spoken." Their eyes met briefly before he offered his arm. "Stay near me. When the time comes, we face her together." Night fell with 1,000 candles blazing in mirrored halls. Music drifted through the palace like silk, waltzes blending with laughter that sounded almost desperate. Masks of gold, silver, and feathers shimmered under the chandeliers. The ball had begun. Henri and Claire entered unnoticed among the stream of guests. Her heart pounded as she glimpsed the Duchess across the room, radiant in crimson silk, surrounded by admirers. Her fan fluttered idly, but her gaze searched the crowd with restless precision. Henri led Claire to the edge of the dance floor. "Watch her hands," he murmured. "She'll not carry the letter openly. It's hidden, perhaps in her fan or sewn into her gown." "She never parts with that fan," Claire whispered. "Even when she eats, she keeps it near." "Then that's where it lies." As the orchestra swelled, the Duchess turned gracefully toward the king. "Your Majesty," she said with a dazzling smile, "a night of joy after such troublesome days. May it remind us that beauty and order still reign at Versailles." The king chuckled, charmed. "And truth, I hope, my lady." "Always, sire," she replied. Henri's jaw tightened. "Truth on her lips is blasphemy," he muttered. Across the room, Claire's eyes never left the fan. Each flick of its painted feathers seemed to mock her. Finally, she whispered, "If she feels cornered, she'll destroy it." Henri nodded. "Then we must corner her without warning." He stepped forward, weaving through dancers until he stood within her circle of admirers. "Your Grace," he said smoothly, bowing. "A pleasure to see you recovered from recent troubles." Her smile froze when she recognized his voice. "Your Highness honors me." "Not at all. I merely wish to congratulate you on your composure. Few could attend a ball on the eve of an inquiry." She tilted her head. "When one's conscience is clear, one need not hide." Henri's eyes gleamed behind the mask. "Indeed. Yet I hear a whisper that the forged letter may have surfaced again. Surely that would darken anyone's conscience." Her hand tightened on the fan, but she laughed lightly. "Rumors, my lord. The court feeds upon them. One must learn not to choke." "Wise counsel," he said. "And yet some rumors, when proven true, tend to burn the liar's hand." The orchestra paused. For a brief moment their voices carried across the hall. A few heads turned. The Duchess's eyes flared with fury. "Your Highness," she said coldly, "perhaps your concern for servants has made you forget your manners." "Perhaps," he said quietly, "but not my honor." The king, noticing the tension, beckoned Henri closer. "Come, Montclair. Let us not spoil our evening with disputes." Henri bowed and stepped back. As the dancers resumed, he rejoined Claire near the marble columns. "She's frightened," he whispered. "She knows we're close." "How will we expose her?" "By forcing her hand. The king will retire soon. Before he does, we must make him see what she hides." Claire nodded, trying to steady her breath. "Then I must speak to her." He stared at her. "You can't. She'll strike the moment she's cornered." "She already has," Claire said softly. "I will not let her finish the game she began." Before he could stop her, she crossed the floor. The Duchess turned, startled. "You!" she breathed. "How dare you come here?" Guests nearby drew back, sensing danger behind the smiles. Claire curtsied slightly. "I came to thank you, Your Grace." "For what?" "For teaching me that silence serves only the cruel." Marguerite's fan froze mid-motion. "You forget your place." "I remember it well," Claire said. "It was beneath your roof that I learned deceit could wear jewels. You dismissed me for seeing too much, and now you stand before the king wearing the proof of your crime at your throat." Gasps rippled through the room. The music faltered again. The Duchess's hand trembled so violently that the fan slipped from her grasp. Henri seized the moment. He stepped forward and picked it up. The hinge cracked as he turned it over. Inside, sewn beneath the silk, a folded parchment glimmered faintly. He tore it free. "This, I believe, belongs to the court." The king's face darkened. "What is that?" "The forged letter," Henri said. "The same that destroyed an innocent woman and now accuses another." Marguerite's voice rose in fury. "Lies. That was planted." But Rousseau, pale and bruised from his attack, had entered unnoticed. "Not planted," he said hoarsely. "Recovered. My men found the false seal broken and replaced within the Duchess's chamber." The hall erupted in noise. Nobles whispered and gasped. The Duchess stumbled backward, her mask slipping. "You fools," she hissed, "you think this saves her? You think truth will make you safe?" Guards moved forward at the king's gesture, but she laughed bitterly. "You'll never bury scandal, sire. The court feeds on it. Today it is me, tomorrow another." Henri's voice cut through her defiance. "But today, justice belongs to the innocent." Marguerite's shoulders sagged. The guards seized her fan and jewels. The king's verdict was brief. The Duchess de Villeneuve will be confined to her estate pending full inquiry. Her titles are suspended. As she was led away, she turned to Claire, her face pale but fierce. "Enjoy your victory, governess. The crown may free you, but the world never will." When she was gone, silence fell over the ballroom. The king rose, signaling the end of festivity. "Enough masks for one night," he said coldly. "Let the truth breathe." Guests began to disperse in uneasy waves. Henri turned to Claire. She looked dazed, her hands clasped before her. "It's over," he said softly. But Rousseau, still leaning on his cane, shook his head. "Not yet. The king may strip her title, but her allies remain. Someone helped her steal the letter from my chamber. Until we find who, your safety is not certain." Henri frowned. "Then we leave Versailles tonight." "Leave?" Claire asked. "You'll go to my estate outside Paris until the final hearing. It's the only place beyond her reach." Rousseau nodded. "Go quickly. Before dawn she'll have half the court plotting her revenge." Henri took Claire's hand. "Gather what you need. I'll send for Elise. We leave within the hour." But as he turned toward the door, a page ran in, breathless and frightened. "Your Highness," the boy gasped. "The Duchess's carriage never went to her estate. The guards sent to escort her are missing." Henri's face went still. "What do you mean?" "She escaped, my lord. She's gone." The news of the Duchess's escape struck Versailles like thunder. Courtiers filled the corridors with whispers, their powdered faces pale under candlelight. Some swore they had seen her carriage leaving through the eastern gate, others that she was hidden in the woods beyond the royal park. None could agree, but all sensed danger in the air. Prince Henri wasted no time. Before the first light touched the palace roofs, he gathered his most loyal guards. "The Duchess must not reach Paris," he ordered. "If she does, her allies will shield her. Every lie she tells will become truth again." Claire stood beside him, her cloak drawn close. "She will come for me first," she said quietly. "She warned me the world would never let me be free. She meant herself." Henri looked at her, his jaw set. "Then we will not let her reach you. You leave Versailles today. Rousseau's carriage waits behind the chapel. Elise is already inside." Claire's eyes widened. "You mean to stay?" "I must. The king will not forgive me if I abandon my post in chaos, but I will follow as soon as I can." "Then let me stay until you are ready," she pleaded. "If she seeks vengeance, she will not strike while you are here." He shook his head. "She has already tried to take you once. I will not tempt fate again." Their voices lowered as footsteps echoed nearby. Rousseau appeared, leaning on his cane, his face pale from his injuries. "Your Highness, the guards at the east gate have found tracks leading toward the river. Her carriage crossed during the night. She rides with only 2 servants, perhaps believing stealth will protect her." Henri turned sharply. "Then she has not fled to Paris. She hides somewhere near." Rousseau nodded. "The roads are watched. She cannot go far without help." "Still," Henri said, "Claire and the child must leave now. If she cannot strike here, she may try on the road." Rousseau's brows knit. "Then let me ride with them. My presence will not draw attention, and I would guard what remains of justice." Claire clasped his hand gratefully. "You have risked much already." He smiled faintly. "Age grants little strength, but sometimes enough to stand in the way of evil." They parted in the grey light of morning. The carriage rolled away through a side gate, its wheels crunching softly over the gravel. Elise waved from the window, her small face bright with trust. "Papa will come soon," she called. Henri watched until the carriage vanished beyond the trees. Only then did he turn to his captain. "Double the watch at every gate. If she dares return, I want her found before nightfall." But by nightfall, no trace appeared. Claire's journey took her through quiet villages where the fog hung low over fields. Rousseau sat opposite her, reading a worn document by lantern light. Elise slept curled between them, her head resting on Claire's lap. "You think she will follow?" Claire asked softly. "I think she will not rest until she has silenced you," Rousseau replied. "But she is wounded now, cornered. Desperation makes even the clever reckless." Claire gazed out the window at the dark forest. "And if she reaches us first?" "Then we pray courage holds longer than fear." Hours passed in uneasy quiet. At last the carriage stopped at an inn by the crossroads to change horses. The innkeeper recognized Rousseau and greeted him with nervous respect. "Rooms are ready, my lord. But you must know there are riders on the southern road asking questions about travelers from Versailles." Rousseau stiffened. "How many?" "2 men and a woman. She wore a veil but spoke like a lady of rank." Claire's breath caught. "She's close." Rousseau turned to the driver. "We leave again at dawn. Tell no one we are here." They climbed the narrow stairs to their chamber. Claire settled Elise on the bed and drew the curtains tight. Outside, the wind rose, rattling the shutters. "Try to rest," Rousseau said, lowering himself into a chair. "We ride early," but Claire could not. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a step on the stairs. At last she went to the window and peered into the courtyard. Moonlight glimmered on the stables. For a moment, nothing moved. Then she saw it, a shadow slipping between the horses, too swift to be the hostler. "Rousseau," she whispered. "Someone's there." He pushed himself up, wincing. "Stay back." Before he reached the door, it burst open. A masked man lunged inside. Rousseau swung his cane, striking the attacker's arm. The man cursed and fled, knocking over a chair. "Guards!" Rousseau shouted. The innkeeper rushed in with a lantern. "He ran toward the woods." Rousseau steadied himself against the wall. "She knows we're here. We leave now." "But Elise, she's asleep." "She'll wake when she must," he said firmly. Within minutes they were on the road again. The moonlight showed the glint of hooves behind them. 2 riders followed at a distance. The coachman whipped the horses faster. At dawn the road curved toward the riverbank. Rousseau leaned out the window. "There's a bridge ahead. If we cross, we can lose them in the hills." But as they approached, one of the riders galloped ahead and blocked the bridge. The veil blew from her face. It was the Duchess. The driver swore and pulled the reins. The carriage jolted to a halt. Claire felt her pulse pound in her ears. Marguerite rode forward slowly, her eyes blazing. "Did you think you could run from me?" she said. "You've taken everything, Claire, the court, my name, my power, but you won't take my silence." Rousseau opened the door and stepped down. "Your Grace, for your own sake, stop this. The king already knows the truth." "Does he?" she said, her voice trembling with fury. "Truth dies easily when no one dares to speak it, and you, old fool, should have stayed in your books." "Then speak it now," Rousseau said quietly. "What do you fear in that silence?" She laughed bitterly. "You think I fear? I made this court what it is, every whisper, every secret, every lie. I only wish I had silenced her sooner." Claire's voice rose behind him. "You wronged an innocent once before, and now you seek another. Have you no heart left, Marguerite?" The Duchess's gaze darted toward the carriage. "Get out," she commanded. Rousseau stood firm. "You will not harm her." Marguerite's face twisted with rage. "Then watch her suffer." She signaled her rider, who drew a knife from his boot. But before he could move, hoofbeats thundered from the opposite bank. Soldiers appeared, Henri at their head. "Enough!" his voice rang out. "Drop the blade!" The rider hesitated. The Duchess stared in disbelief as Henri dismounted. "You... how?" "I followed your trail from Versailles," he said. "Did you think I would let vengeance outrun justice?" Her expression crumbled. "You destroyed me, Henri. All I wanted was peace. They would have cast me aside. You, Rousseau, the king, you all feared a woman with power." "No," Henri said, his tone steady. "We feared a woman who traded conscience for ambition." She stared at him, breathing hard. "You speak of conscience while protecting a servant?" "I protect innocence," he said. "Something you once possessed and threw away." Her hand trembled. "You cannot take everything from me. I will not go back to chains." Henri nodded to the guards. "Then go in freedom, Marguerite, but far from Versailles. The king will grant exile instead of disgrace if you surrender now." She gave a sharp, broken laugh. "Exile? Among peasants? Never." She turned her horse sharply, galloping toward the woods. The soldiers gave chase, but Henri raised a hand. "Let her go. Her pride will punish her more than chains ever could." Rousseau sighed deeply, leaning on his cane. "The storm has passed, for now." Henri turned toward the carriage. Claire stepped down, Elise clinging to her hand. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No," she said softly. "Only grateful." The morning sun cut through the fog at last, spilling gold over the river. For a moment, all was still. Then Rousseau spoke again, his voice rough with fatigue. "Your Highness, the king awaits your return. Versailles needs its prince again." Henri looked at Claire, and then at his daughter. "Versailles can wait a little longer." They rode slowly toward the nearby village, the soldiers following behind. When they stopped at the chapel square, the bells began to ring, a calm, clear sound after the chaos. Rousseau dismounted with effort. "Rest here until the road is safe. I will return to the palace and end the inquiry. When I send word, you may come home." Claire took his hand. "You have saved more than a life today, sir. You have saved truth itself." He smiled faintly. "Then may it live longer than we do." As he rode away, Henri watched the horizon where the Duchess had vanished. The forest swallowed her path, leaving only silence. Claire stood beside him, her voice low. "Do you think she will return?" "She will try," he said. "But when she does, we will be ready." A breeze stirred the trees, scattering petals across the square. Elise laughed softly, chasing one that landed on her hand. Henri watched her for a moment, then looked back at Claire. "Whatever comes next, you are not alone in it." She opened her mouth to reply, but a distant sound broke the calm. Riders again, galloping fast from the north road. Henri's hand went to his sword. Those are not Rousseau's men. The thunder of hooves drew closer, echoing against the stone walls of the chapel square. The sound cut through the morning calm like a blade. Henri motioned Claire and Elise behind him. "Stay inside," he said quickly. "Don't come out unless I call." Claire pulled Elise close, her heart hammering. "Papa," the girl began, but he silenced her with a quick look that was half comfort, half command. Dust rose on the road as 5 riders appeared, their cloaks dark and unmarked. Henri's soldiers moved to intercept them, but one of the newcomers raised a gloved hand. "Hold!" he shouted. "We come with news from Paris." Henri stepped forward, his guard still wary. "From Paris? Identify yourselves." The leader dismounted, pulling off his hood to reveal a man with sharp features and grey eyes. "Captain Moreau, in service to the crown. We bring orders from the king himself." Henri frowned. "The king?" Moreau produced a sealed letter. "A summons, your highness. His Majesty demands your immediate return to Versailles. The Duchess has sent word to the court. She claims she carries evidence of treason within your household." "Treason?" Henri's voice darkened. "She dares even now." Moreau hesitated. "The accusation is grave. The king wishes to question you before the council." Claire stepped forward despite Henri's warning. "What evidence can she possibly have? She's a fugitive." Moreau glanced at her with polite detachment. "Madam, the king listens to every voice when the realm's honor is at stake. The Duchess has powerful allies still." Henri's gaze turned to his men. "Prepare the horses. We ride within the hour." "Your Highness," Claire said softly, "if she accuses you, it is because she knows you will defend me." "Then let her speak," Henri replied. "I will face her lies in the light of the throne." Rousseau's escort had not yet returned, so Henri ordered 2 of his soldiers to remain behind for Claire and Elise. "Take them to the estate once the road is safe," he said. "You'll guard them with your lives." Claire caught his hand as he turned to go. "You face her alone?" He held her gaze. "Not alone. The truth stands with me, and you are the reason I'll return." Before she could answer, he mounted and led the riders away toward Versailles, the hooves fading into the distance. The village grew quiet again. Claire led Elise inside the small chapel, where candles flickered weakly before the altar. The girl sat in one of the pews, clutching a wooden cross. "Papa will be back soon," Elise said, though her voice trembled. Claire forced a smile. "Yes, he will." Hours passed. The soldiers kept watch by the road, scanning every shadow that shifted in the trees. By afternoon, the sun had vanished behind heavy clouds, and thunder rolled in the distance. When the first drops fell, Claire joined the guards at the door. "Any word?" "None, madame," one said. "But if the Duchess truly rides for Versailles, she'll reach it by nightfall. The prince will confront her before the council." She nodded, though unease gnawed at her. "Then we wait." Rain began to fall harder. Inside, Elise slept curled on the pew. Claire wrapped her cloak around the child and sat near the window, watching the storm wash the road clean. Every flash of lightning made her flinch. At dusk, the older guard entered with a furrowed brow. "Madame, I found something by the well, a scrap of velvet." He held out a torn piece of crimson fabric, its edge embroidered with gold. Claire's breath caught. "That's from the Duchess's gown." The guard exchanged a grim look with his companion. "She's near." Before Claire could speak, a sudden knock struck the chapel door. 3 sharp raps, deliberate and slow. The guards drew their swords. "So who's there?" one demanded. A voice answered from outside, smooth and familiar. "A traveller seeking shelter from the rain?" Claire froze. She knew that voice. "Open," the Duchess said softly, "or I shall think you unkind." The older guard stepped back, sword ready. "Stay behind us, madame." The door creaked open a few inches, enough to reveal the Duchess standing in the downpour, her face half shrouded by a hood. She looked soaked and pale, but still carried herself with chilling poise. "Your Grace," the guard said sharply, "you are under royal order of arrest. Do not move." Marguerite smiled faintly. "Arrest? How quaint. The king has already forgiven me. I am come to fetch what is mine." "What you seek is not here," Claire said, stepping into the light. The Duchess's eyes gleamed. "Ah, but she is." In a swift motion, she pushed the door wider. Behind her stood two men armed with daggers. The guards moved to block them, blades clashing. The sound of steel filled the small chapel, echoing against the stone. Claire pulled Elise into the corner, shielding her. One guard fell, wounded, the other fought fiercely, forcing the attackers back toward the doorway. Lightning flashed again, blinding them for an instant. Marguerite stepped through the chaos, her voice rising above the storm. "You thought you could erase me, Claire. You thought you could bury my name beneath your virtue." Claire's voice shook but held steady. "I never wanted your ruin. I wanted only justice." "Justice." The Duchess laughed bitterly. "A word for the powerful to excuse their mercy. You took my husband's respect, the king's favor, even the child's affection. What remains to me but vengeance? Vengeance will not make you whole." The Duchess's smile vanished. "No, but it will make me remembered." She drew a small pistol from beneath her cloak, its barrel gleaming in the candlelight. The guards froze. "Your Grace," one said cautiously, "lay it down." "Step aside," she ordered. Claire pushed Elise behind the altar, her heart pounding. "Please, Marguerite, this will not bring peace. End this before it destroys what's left of you." "Silence!" The Duchess's voice broke. "I was queen of that world, and you nothing. I will not vanish into dust while you rise in my place." Her finger trembled on the trigger. A thunderclap split the sky, and the pistol fired. The shot rang through the chapel, shattering a candle holder. Smoke filled the air. Claire fell to her knees, covering Elise with her arms. When the smoke cleared, she realized the bullet had struck the wall inches above her head. Marguerite stood frozen, her face white. The weapon slipped from her hand. I missed," she whispered, as if the words were a curse. The guard lunged forward, seizing her by the arm. She did not resist. Instead, she stared at Claire with a strange, hollow calm. "You will have your happy ending now," she said softly. "But remember, every crown of virtue rests on another's ruin." As the soldiers bound her hands, thunder rolled again. The younger guard retrieved the fallen pistol. "Your Grace, you will answer for this at Versailles." She laughed once, quietly. "So many times I've heard that." They led her out into the storm. The rain swallowed her figure as they disappeared down the road toward the capital. Claire sank onto the floor beside Elise, trembling. The child clung to her. "Is it over, Nanny?" "Yes, my love," she said, though her voice quavered. "It's over." But deep inside, she knew it wasn't. Not while Henri faced the king's wrath alone. At dawn, the guards returned, weary but triumphant. "She's delivered to the palace," one said. "The prince arrived there before us." "The king has called the final hearing for tomorrow." Claire rose slowly. "Then we go to him." The soldier hesitated. "The roads may be dangerous still." "I don't care," she said. "He has fought every battle for me. I will not hide while he stands alone." They left the chapel before sunrise, the sky still heavy with mist. The carriage rolled swiftly toward Versailles. Elise watched from the window, eyes wide with wonder. "Will the king forgive Papa?" she asked. "He will," Claire answered. "He must." When they reached the city gates, the streets were already crowded. News of the Duchess's capture had spread. The people whispered as the royal guards passed. Inside the palace, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Courtiers gathered in the great hall once more, their silks rustling like restless wings. Claire stood at the edge beside Elise, her hands clenched. At the dais, the king sat solemnly. The Duchess stood before him, pale but composed, her wrists bound with ribbon instead of chains. Henri stood opposite, unmasked and proud, though exhaustion shadowed his face. The king's voice echoed through the hall. "You are charged with deceit, perjury, and violence within my realm. Yet before I judge, speak if you have defense." Marguerite lifted her head. "I have none, sire, only one truth. Power forgives its own sins, but never the sins of those who lose it." The king's expression did not change. "Then your sentence is exile. You will depart France within 3 days and never return. Your name will be struck from the court registry." A murmur swept through the crowd. Marguerite bowed her head once, then turned her gaze toward Claire. "You have won," she said quietly. "But victory at Versailles is only the beginning of another war." As guards led her away, Claire felt both pity and dread. She turned to Henri, who stood motionless as the king's attention shifted to him. "Prince Henri de Montclair," the king said slowly, "you defied royal order. shielded the accused and placed personal conviction above loyalty to the crown. How do you answer? Henri met the king's gaze without fear. With truth, sire. I would rather lose favor than lose my soul. A hush fell over the room. The king leaned back in his chair, his face unreadable. Then you shall keep your soul, he said at last, but not your place. You are relieved of royal duty until further notice. The hall erupted in whispers. Claire's breath caught as Henri bowed deeply, his voice calm, "As your majesty commands." But when he lifted his head, his eyes found hers across the room, steady and unbroken. As the guards escorted him from the hall, Claire's pulse quickened. The king's voice rose again, cold and final. "Take him to the northern wing until his departure is decided." The sound of the king's command fell like iron. The guards stepped forward at once. Prince Henri did not resist. He simply inclined his head and allowed them to lead him toward the northern wing, where nobles were held under watch rather than thrown into prison. The crowd parted in silence. Only Elise's small cry broke through the murmurs as Claire clasped her hand. "Papa!" the child cried. "Where are they taking you?" Henri turned back briefly, forcing a smile that barely reached his eyes. "Just for a while, my little one. Be brave." The great doors closed behind him. Claire stood frozen among the courtiers. The hall that had once been her terror now seemed suffocating. She wanted to run after him, but the king's gaze stopped her. "Madame Fournier," the monarch said, his tone softened but firm, "you have caused both scandal and illumination in this court. For your honesty I grant protection, but you will not interfere with His Highness's confinement. Do you understand?" She curtsied, trembling. "Yes, your majesty." "Return to your quarters," he said. "Versailles has had enough truth for 1 week." When the audience ended, the nobles dispersed in whispers. Some offered her sympathetic glances, others disdain. She walked through the gilded corridor, holding Elise close. Every portrait on the walls seemed to watch her. In her chamber, she sank to the chair by the fire. Elise climbed onto her lap, pressing her face to Claire's shoulder. "Why is he in a cage?" the girl asked through tears. Claire smoothed her hair gently. "Because courage frightens kings, my love. But your father is not afraid, and we must not be either." She spent the next hours pacing, unable to rest. Each footstep echoed her anxiety. When the candles burned low, a knock sounded at the door. Rousseau entered, looking older than she remembered. "You should not be alone tonight," he said quietly. "Have they told you what will happen to him?" she asked. He nodded. "The king means to send him away to his estate under watch. It is mercy, not punishment, but exile all the same." "Exile," she whispered, "for defending innocence." "Versailles forgives scandal more easily than virtue," Rousseau said bitterly. "But the storm will pass. I will speak with the council tomorrow. The king listens to reason when the court sleeps." Claire rose abruptly. "I cannot wait for tomorrow. I must see him tonight." "You cannot," Rousseau warned. "The northern wing is guarded." "Then tell me another way. I will not let him think I have abandoned him." Rousseau studied her for a moment, then sighed. "There is a servants' corridor that leads beneath the north tower. If you go after midnight, the guards will have changed shifts. I will distract the watch if I can." She clasped his hand. "You are risking much." "So did he," the old judge replied. "Now go, before courage fades." When midnight came, the palace lay cloaked in silence. Claire wrapped herself in a dark cloak and slipped into the corridor. The faint gleam of moonlight guided her through the narrow passage that smelled of damp stone. She moved quietly, her breath shallow, until she reached the staircase to the north wing. 2 guards stood at the far end of the hall, their lanterns casting wide circles of light. Claire waited, hidden behind a pillar, until one yawned and muttered about the cold. The other stepped away to fetch more wine from the lower level. When their footsteps faded, she darted forward. The heavy door at the end was locked, but she had seen enough keys in her years of service to recognize the type. She slipped a small hairpin from her braid and turned it carefully. The latch gave a soft click. Inside, the air was heavy and still. Only a single lamp burned on a table. Henri sat beside it, his coat unbuttoned, his face pale but calm. He looked up in shock when she entered. "Claire, how—" She closed the door behind her. "Do not speak, I had to come." He rose and caught her hands. "If they find you here, "Let them," she said fiercely. "I cannot stand outside those walls while you bear the blame for my life." He smiled faintly, though his eyes shone with exhaustion. "Your courage will undo me before the king does." She shook her head. "They will send you away." "I know. Then I go with you." "No," he said firmly. "You must stay with Elise. She needs her home, her stability. I would not rob her of that." "And what of me?" He hesitated. "If I could take you, I would. But the world beyond these walls is not kind to women tied to scandal. I would rather bear exile alone than see you suffer its cruelty." She looked at him for a long moment, the shadows flickering between them. "You think I fear the world more than I fear losing you?" He drew a breath, unsteady. "Claire," she stepped closer, "I will not leave you again. Do you not understand? My life was silence until you gave it voice. You taught me that truth is not a sin. How can I now live in lies by pretending I do not love you?" He closed his eyes as though her words cut through the last defense he had. "You should not have said that, but it is true." He took her hands, pressing them to his chest. "Then hear mine. I have loved you from the first moment I saw you hold my daughter, as if she were your own. Every moment since has been torment, duty against desire, honor against heart. I swore to myself I would never speak it, but if this night is all we have, let it be the truth between us." Her tears came quietly. "Then let the world judge us as it will." He bent his forehead to hers, their breaths mingling in the silence. For a moment, time itself seemed to hold its breath. Then he stepped back, the struggle clear in his eyes. "You must go before dawn," he whispered. "If they find you here, they will call it betrayal." "I will not leave you," she repeated. A sudden sound interrupted them, the echo of boots in the corridor. Henri turned sharply. Too late. Claire ran to the corner, hiding behind the curtain as the door swung open. A guard entered, holding a torch. "Your Highness, the king requests your presence at first light. Preparations for departure begin at dawn." Henri nodded calmly. "Tell His Majesty, I obey." The guard saluted and left. When the door closed, Claire stepped out again, shaken. "They will take you before sunrise." He smiled faintly. "Then this is farewell." She shook her head, gripping his sleeve. "No, it is only waiting. Wherever they send you, I will follow. You cannot forbid my heart to travel." His answer was soft. "Then promise me you'll care for Elise until I send for you. Promise me you'll live." "I promise," she whispered. He kissed her hand, a brief touch filled with unspoken vows. "Now go, before courage turns to recklessness." She hesitated one last second, then slipped through the door. The corridor stretched before her, dim and silent. She reached the stairwell just as voices echoed again, two guards laughing, unaware of her presence. She ducked into the shadows until they passed. When she returned to her chamber, the horizon had begun to pale. Elise still slept, her small hand curled beneath her cheek. Claire sank beside the bed, exhaustion and grief pressing on her in equal measure. By mid-morning, the bells rang again. From the window, she watched as a small procession left the palace gates. At its center rode Henri, flanked by two officers. He did not look back, but she knew he felt her eyes upon him. Rousseau entered quietly behind her. "The king has spared his title," he said. "He is to live at his estate near Lyon under watch. It could have been worse." Claire's voice was barely a whisper. "He is still a prisoner." Rousseau nodded. "So are all who love too deeply." She turned to him. "Can I write to him?" "Not yet. The king forbids correspondence until the council concludes, but the Duchess has sailed this morning for England. Once she is gone, the danger fades. Then I will find a way." Claire managed a faint smile. "You have been a friend, when I thought none remained." "Justice has few friends," he said softly. "That is why we must protect those it touches." Days passed in uneasy quiet. Versailles returned to its routine of gossip and grandeur, pretending tragedy had never crossed its halls. But every evening, Claire and Elise lit a candle by the window facing the west, sending their silent hope toward the man far away. 1 week later, as the sun set over the gardens, a messenger arrived carrying a sealed note. Claire broke it open with trembling hands. The handwriting was unmistakable. Henri's. "My dearest Claire," it began, "they may hold me in walls of stone, but my heart walks beside you. Tell Elise I see her smile in every sunrise. The king's anger cools. Rousseau has spoken well for me. If fortune allows, I will return before winter. Until then, remember what you said. Truth is not a sin. Her eyes blurred with tears. She pressed the letter to her lips, unaware that from the courtyard below, a shadow watched her window before melting into the garden's darkness. The man wore the uniform of a courier, but his eyes were cold and sharp. When he turned away, the light caught a ring on his hand, the Villeneuve crest. Summer faded into autumn, and the air of Versailles softened with the scent of rain and fallen leaves. Weeks had passed since Henry's exile, and life inside the palace continued its hollow rhythm. Dances resumed, music filled the halls again, and those who had once whispered about scandal now gossiped about fashion. Yet for Claire, each day felt like a quiet vigil. She lived now in the prince's former apartments, assigned to oversee Elise's education under royal protection. It was both a mercy and a reminder of distance. Every morning, she took Elise for lessons in the gardens, where the child's laughter cut through the melancholy like a bell. "Do you think Papa sees the same sun?" Elise asked one morning, shading her eyes to the sky. "I believe he does," Claire said softly. "And he looks toward it, thinking of us." The girl smiled. "Then when we walk here, we are all walking together." Those words warmed her heart, but behind the warmth lingered unease. Ever since the letter arrived, Claire had noticed strange things, a folded note appearing beneath her door, gone before she could read it, a shadow moving near the servants' quarters at night, a man who seemed to linger near the gates. She told herself it was fear playing tricks on her, but the feeling never left. One evening, as the sky bruised purple, Rousseau came to visit. His limp had worsened, but his spirit remained steady. He carried news from Lyon. "The prince is well," he said, settling into the chair by the fire. "He keeps his household in order, tends to his tenants, and sends reports to the crown each week. The king's temper has cooled. There is talk of his return before winter." Claire's breath caught. "Truly?" Rousseau smiled faintly. "Truly. But until the decree is signed, he must remain quiet. The court must first forget its hunger for spectacle." "I can endure waiting," she said, "so long as he is safe." Rousseau nodded, studying her face. "And you? Have you been safe here?" She hesitated. "I believe so," he frowned. "Only believe?" She lowered her voice. "Someone watches. I feel it. Perhaps it's foolish, but sometimes when I walk the corridors at night, I hear footsteps behind me, and when I turn, no one is there." Rousseau's expression grew grave. "It is not foolish. I have heard whispers, a name not spoken since the trial. The Duke of Villeneuve has returned to France." Claire froze. "The Duke?" "Yes, he has appealed to the crown for the restoration of his family's honor. He blames the Duchess's downfall on you and the prince. He claims you conspired to ruin her name." Claire's voice trembled. "He knows she fled. He must know the truth." "Truth rarely serves grief," Rousseau said. "He loved her in his own way, though he knew her faults. Now he seeks to rewrite her story." Claire turned toward the fire, her hands tightening on the chair's edge. "So the past follows us still." "It always does," Rousseau murmured. "But listen well. He means to present his plea at court within a fortnight. I will ensure the king hears another voice before his." She looked at him, her eyes full of gratitude. "You have given everything to defend us." "I only defend what deserves to be remembered kindly," he said. "Rest easy, my dear. Shadows cannot hold long under light." But that night, as she watched the candles burn low, Claire could not rest. She dreamed of the Duchess's face, pale, furious, and unrepentant, and of Henri, alone behind distant walls. When she woke before dawn, she found a letter slipped beneath her door. It bore no seal. Only one sentence was written in a precise, elegant hand. The sins of the Duchess were not hers alone. Claire stared at the words until the ink blurred. Later that morning, she showed it to Rousseau. He examined it with a frown. "This handwriting," he said slowly, "is not the Duke's. It is hers." "That's impossible," Claire whispered. "She sailed for England months ago." "Then someone carries her ghost," Rousseau said grimly. "Perhaps a loyal servant, perhaps the Duke himself. Either way, it means only one thing. They seek to stir the ashes." Within days, news arrived that confirmed his fear. The Duke of Villeneuve had requested an audience with the king, not to plead mercy, but to accuse. His petition claimed that the Duchess had been a victim of forgery and deceit, orchestrated by Prince Henri and his governess to steal influence and wealth. The court buzzed again. Old rumors returned like crows to a field long ploughed. By the second week of autumn, Rousseau was called to testify once more. He left Versailles for Paris to gather records that would clear Henri's name. Before he departed, he told Claire, "Stay close to the child. Trust no one beyond your door. When I return, all will be resolved." But the palace was no longer safe. 2 nights after Rousseau's departure, the guards reported that a man wearing the Villeneuve crest had entered the grounds disguised as a courier. He vanished before they could question him. That same evening, Elise fell ill, a sudden fever, fierce and strange. Claire called for the physician, who shook his head helplessly. "It may be no more than exhaustion," he said, "but her pulse is weak. Keep her warm and pray." Claire sat beside the bed, cooling the girl's brow with a damp cloth. "You must not leave me, Elise," she whispered. "Your father cannot bear another loss." The child stirred faintly. "Nanny, don't cry. I can hear Papa's voice. He says we'll go home soon." Claire pressed her hand. "Yes, my darling, we will." But as night deepened, a sound came from the corridor, the creak of a door, the faint echo of steps. She looked up sharply. The guards had been dismissed to fetch medicine. "Who's there?" she called. No answer. She rose, heart pounding, and crossed the room. The door opened slowly under her hand. The corridor stretched empty and dim, save for a flicker of candlelight near the far corner. When she stepped forward, a voice stopped her, low, steady, and cold. "Still guarding the prince's treasure, I see." She turned. The man who emerged from the shadows was tall, dressed in dark riding clothes, his face lined with bitterness. The Villeneuve crest gleamed at his throat. "Duke," she breathed, "you should not be here." He bowed slightly, though mockery sharpened the gesture. "Versailles still welcomes noble blood, even when it has been stained. You came to frighten me." "To remind you," he said. "You think her guilt absolves you. You think your virtue redeemed what you destroyed. My wife died of shame in exile, not by her sins, but by yours." Claire steadied her voice. "She destroyed herself, my lord. I only told the truth." "Truth," he hissed. "That word again. You have no idea what truth cost her." He stepped closer, his eyes burning. "Do you know what it is to love someone so deeply that you would rather believe her lies than live without them?" "I know what it is to love someone enough to free them from lies," she said quietly. His expression twisted. "Then you and I are enemies, Madame Fournier, because I will not rest until her name is restored and yours erased." "Will you destroy an innocent child to do it?" she demanded. "Your quarrel is with me, not with Elise, not with her father." For a moment his anger faltered. "I seek no harm to the girl, but the prince's name will fall as hers did. The court must remember who held power first." She lifted her chin. "If you spill more falsehoods, you will only prove how empty your honor has become." The Duke's eyes hardened. "Honor? No, madame. I have only vengeance left." He turned sharply and strode down the corridor, his cloak sweeping behind him. Claire followed, calling after him, but he vanished into the servants' stairwell before the guards returned. When they found her, she was trembling but resolute. "Search the palace," she ordered. "He is here. The Duke of Villeneuve walks among us." The guards scattered, and soon the corridors were filled with torches and shouts. Yet the Duke was nowhere to be found. Only one thing remained, the candle at the end of the hall guttering in the draught, beside a folded parchment pinned to the wall. Claire tore it free and unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakable, the same as on the letter left beneath her door. "He has already left for Lyon." Her heart stopped. The message was short, but its meaning clear. Henri was in danger. The night that followed felt endless. Claire barely breathed as she read the note again, the words burning into her mind. "He has already left for Lyon." There was no signature, no seal, but she knew who it meant. Henri. He was alone, still under watch in exile, and the Duke was riding toward him. Every beat of her heart said the same thing. If she did nothing, she might lose him forever. She gathered her cloak and crossed the room to Elise's bedside. The child stirred weakly, the fever broken at last. "Where are you going?" she murmured. Claire bent close. "To bring your father home. Bring him back soon," the girl whispered. "I'll wait by the window." Claire kissed her brow, then turned to the guards outside the door. "I need 2 horses and silence," she said. "Not a word to the court. The Duke rides for Lion and I ride faster." The younger guard hesitated. "But, Madame, the King will forgive a servant who saves his prince," she cut in. They obeyed. Within an hour, she was on the road, the chill wind biting at her face as the dark fields rushed by. The stars stretched wide above her, and the sound of hooves echoed through the night like a heartbeat. She rode without stopping, her thoughts fixed only on one thing. If the Duke reached Lyon before her, Henri's life could end as cruelly as Marguerite's pride had fallen. By the time dawn painted the sky pale gold, the countryside of Burgundy spread before her. Her horse stumbled, exhausted, but she pressed on. Every mile carried her closer to him. Near midday, she saw a plume of dust ahead, riders moving fast. She urged her horse to a rise overlooking the road and watched as 3 figures galloped below. At their head rode the Duke, unmistakable even from a distance, his dark cloak streaming behind him. Claire turned her horse onto a smaller path, cutting through the woods. If she took the forest road, she might reach the Montclair estate first. The path was narrow, but she trusted instinct more than caution. Branches tore at her cloak, roots caught her stirrups, but she did not slow. When she finally broke through the trees, the land opened onto the valley where Henri's estate stood, stone towers rising against the fading light. She spurred her horse forward, shouting to the sentries at the gate, "Open! For the prince's life!" The guards stared in shock as she dismounted, breathless. "Madame Fournier, what brings you—" "There's no time," she said. "The Duke of Villeneuve rides to harm him. You must warn His Highness now." Before they could respond, the doors of the manor opened. Henri himself stepped out, his coat unbuttoned, his expression startled and uncomprehending. "Claire?" She ran to him, words tumbling out between gasps. "The Duke! He's coming! He blames you! He blames me! I saw him at Versailles. He's sworn vengeance. You must hide, Henri, please." He caught her shoulders, steadying her. "Slow down. Tell me everything." "There's no time," she said desperately. "He'll be here within the hour." Henri turned to the guards. "Send for the local militia, close the gates." Then back to her. "You shouldn't have come. The road is dangerous." "I couldn't stay while you were in danger," she said, her voice breaking. He looked at her then, really looked, mud on her cloak, wind in her hair, exhaustion shadowing her face, and something inside him seemed to shift. "You crossed half of France for me," he murmured. "How could I have doubted that love such as yours would find its way through any storm?" Before she could answer, a horn sounded in the distance, long and sharp. The Duke had arrived. Henri's hand went to the hilt of his sword, though he had sworn never to draw it again. "Get inside," he said. "No," she whispered. "If you face him, I stand with you." He hesitated, then nodded once. "Then we face him together." Moments later, the Duke's riders appeared at the gates. His voice rang out, proud and venomous. "Open in the King's name. I come to demand justice for the House of Villeneuve." Henri stepped forward to the courtyard, Claire beside him. "Justice?" he called back. "You come with vengeance, not law. Speak your grievance and begone." The Duke dismounted slowly, his boots striking the stones. "You ruined my wife. You made her name a curse. You think exile redeems your treason. I come for the truth you buried." "There is no truth left to twist," Henri said calmly. "Your wife's deeds condemned her, not my words, not hers." The Duke's eyes flicked to Claire. "And what of this woman? The governess who played queen while nobles fell to ruin. She destroyed Marguerite's name to raise her own." Claire stepped forward, her voice clear despite her trembling. "I destroyed nothing. Your wife's lies did that. I pitied her once, but not enough to remain silent while she condemned the innocent." He sneered. "Brave words for a servant clinging to a prince's favor." Henri's tone sharpened. "Say another word against her, and you will answer to me." The Duke laughed bitterly. "At last the prince defends his mistress openly." Henri's patience broke. "She is not my mistress. She is my heart. And for her I would endure every exile and every disgrace again." The declaration hung in the air. Claire felt her knees weaken, but Henri's hand found hers, steady and sure. The Duke's face twisted. Then both of you shall share her fate. You think your title protects you, but the court already whispers of your fall. Then let them whisper, Henri said. Their words have never built anything worth keeping. The Duke drew a pistol from his coat. Gasps rose from the guards. Henri pushed Claire behind him. You won't kill me here, Henri said. Not before witnesses. The Duke's hand trembled. Witnesses forget. Widows weep forever. Before he could aim, Claire stepped forward. If it is revenge you want, then take it from me, she said. It was my testimony that condemned her, my words that stripped your house of honor. But if you kill an innocent man, you will become what you claim to despise. The Duke's eyes flickered, uncertainty warring with rage. You would die for him. I would live for him, she said simply, and that is what terrifies you most. The pistol wavered. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then a shot rang out, not from the Duke's hand but from the wall above. One of Henri's guards had fired, striking the weapon from the Duke's grasp. It clattered to the stones. The Duke staggered, clutching his arm. The weapon's smoke drifted between them like a ghost. Henri stepped forward. Enough blood for one lifetime, Villeneuve. Leave now. Take what remains of your pride and make peace with it. The Duke glared at him, hatred hollowing his features. Peace? You know nothing of it. I know it begins when vengeance ends, Henri said. For a long moment the older man stood motionless. Then his shoulders sagged. You've taken everything from me, he whispered. Even my anger. He turned to his men. We leave. They mounted in silence and rode away, their silhouettes fading into the mist. When they were gone, Henri exhaled, the tension breaking like a string. He turned to Claire, who still stood frozen, her hands shaking. It's over, he said softly. You're safe. Her voice trembled. You could have been killed. So could you, he replied, stepping closer. And yet you came. You crossed mountains of fear to find me. How can I ever repay that? She looked up at him, tears bright in her eyes. You already have. You believed me when no one else would. He touched her face gently, brushing a stray tear away with his thumb. If believing in you is my sin, then I will never ask forgiveness. Her breath caught. The world around them seemed to fall away. The courtyard, the guards, the distant fields, until there was only him. I thought I had lost you, she whispered. He smiled faintly. You will never lose me again. Their lips met, tentative at first, then fierce with all the months of silence and fear and longing that had kept them apart. The kiss broke the weight of everything that had passed. The trial, the exile, the pain. For the first time, there was nothing between them but peace. When they parted, Henri rested his forehead against hers. Stay here, he murmured. Let this place be our beginning, not our end. She laughed softly through her tears. And what of the king? I'll face him, he said, but not as a man begging pardon, as one who has found his freedom. 2 days later, Rousseau arrived at the estate with new orders. The king has lifted your confinement, he announced, smiling as Henri met him at the gate. He received word of the Duke's attack and calls it proof of your integrity. You are to return to court when you wish, though between us, he seems relieved you are far from it. Henri clasped the old man's shoulder. Then, justice, at last, keeps its promise. Rousseau turned to Claire, his eyes soft with affection. You have fought long for this day, my dear. The world will forget the scandal soon enough. What will you do now? She glanced at Henri, who stood watching her with quiet hope. I think, she said, I have forgotten how to live anywhere but where he is. Rousseau chuckled. Then stay where the heart is kindest. Autumn ripened into gold. Word spread quietly that the Prince of Montclair had renounced his post at court, choosing to remain at his estate. There, among the orchards and vineyards, peace returned. The world beyond Versailles spoke little of them now, and those who remembered their story spoke of courage, not disgrace. One crisp morning, Elise came running across the garden, laughter spilling through the air. Papa, Nanny, look! She held a small branch heavy with white blossoms. The tree has bloomed again. Henri lifted her into his arms. Then spring comes early, he said. Claire smiled. It seems even the earth forgives. They spent the day beneath that tree, the air bright and clear. As evening fell, the estate glowed with candlelight. Servants moved quietly, carrying flowers and garlands. Rousseau, now more a friend than judge, stood beside the small table set in the garden. Henri took Claire's hand, his voice steady. "This is no ceremony of rank, no decree of kings, only two souls who have found their truth." She nodded, tears glimmering in her eyes. "And no vow can be stronger than what we already carry in our hearts." When they spoke their vows, the world seemed to still. The wind fell silent, the candles flickered as though listening. When Henri kissed her again, it was not with urgency but with peace, the peace they had both fought for, the peace that would not fade. After the guests retired, they walked through the garden under a sky strewn with stars. Elise slept inside, her laughter still echoing faintly through the open window. Henri wrapped his arm around Claire's shoulders. "Do you remember," he said, "the day you first entered Versailles? I thought you so quiet, so distant. I never imagined that quiet would become the voice that changed my life." "And I never imagined," she replied, smiling, "that a prince could teach a servant how to be brave." They stopped at the edge of the terrace. The valley stretched before them, filled with moonlight. Henri looked at her for a long time, then said softly, "There were days when I thought I had nothing left to believe in. And then you spoke one truth, and it was enough to build a life upon." She leaned against him. "Then let this life be ours." He drew her close, his voice low. "Forever." The wind moved through the trees, carrying with it the scent of the blossoms, and somewhere beyond the horizon, a new dawn waited. And in that quiet moment, no court, no fear, no judgment left between them. They finally belonged not to duty or rumor or memory, but to each other, completely and without regret. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.